Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching in the world. Welcome along to the Refuse to Lose podcast. Of course, named after the legendary Dale Earnhardt's quote, "The winner ain't the one with the fastest car, it's the one who refuses to lose." My name is Kieran McGinley. It's great to be back for a new year. And joining me is, of course, my co-host, Austin Smith. Austin, it's been a while. Great to have you back. Great to be with you again. How are you this fine evening?
Yeah, it's been a while, Kieran, and Happy New Year to you and everyone watching. I've been sick for the most part, really. Really unfortunate over the holidays. Got the illness bug, if you will. Not the injury bug, thankfully, but I didn't feel too well for basically 2 weeks, maybe even more. But yeah, I'm healthy again. I'm no longer sick, and I'm doing great. How are you doing, Kieran?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Must have been good over Christmas because look at this brand new mic. You can hear crystal. Well, I hope it's crystal clear.
It is
all this time. Okay, good stuff. So gone are the days when I'd have to have a headset on and microphone directly to my mouth. Basically, it's now over there on the desk. It's quite nice and it looks pretty. It looks the part, so it must be the part. I hope. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, generally the microphones that look like they're proper microphones tend to be proper microphones.
Well, excellent. I hope that's going to be the case. So it's been a while. Quite a few things have happened. Quite a few things have happened that have already been resolved, but we're still going to talk about them. The first of those is going to be GT Sport. Now, a lot of controversy really toiled about with GT Sport, where there were videos being uploaded where even when someone made contact with you, even if they rammed into you from behind and pushed you off the track, you would get the penalty. And you would be taking your own line, the racing line, you still get a penalty. You'd be side by side with another car. You make contact, slight contact, and that's a penalty, 2-second penalty. And Twitter exploded with this. Twitter exploded with these penalties that I saw some of them, and they were, well, harsh would be an understatement. Very harsh would be even more of an understatement. But Austin, you're a prolific GT Sport player. You've obviously taken part in the FIA events. I mean, you can talk us through more about those absurd penalties.
Yeah. So it all started really when I think the first one to discover this was Key 25. One of the most popular GT Sport YouTubers, content creators out there, who right as soon as the update came out, had a live stream and had some open lobbies to test if there were some changes to the physics or to tire wear, whatever. And he, all of a sudden in that open lobby race, or in one of the open lobby races he held, out of nowhere got a 6-second penalty. And to put that into perspective, usually the way it worked before that patch was that you would get around usually a 2-second penalty for like some contact that is for slight contact you got nothing, for medium contact around 2 seconds, and for really, really heavy contact, pushing someone off the track, the hardest you could get really was 5 seconds. I haven't seen, before that patch, I haven't seen any 10-second penalties or even 6 seconds. And then all of a sudden this patch comes around, and for nothing, for rubbing doors, you get a 6-second penalty. Or there was a video I saw uploaded by the Nations Cup champion, Mikael Hazal, where he was racing the Tokyo Expressway East Outer Loop, I think it was, where he got bump drafted. So he got driven into. There was nothing he could do. He got bump drafted and got an 8-second time penalty. 8 seconds on the straight, no issue, just a little slight bump draft, a slight tap, and 8 seconds. And he uploaded this with a very cryptic title, bunch of numbers, but if you decode those numbers, each of them stands for a letter in the alphabet. It spells deserved penalty. And
Oh, dear.
wow, it was interesting to see. And since then, this has been patched. However, I don't think it has been patched in a way that people are happy, because as soon as the new patch came out, which was, I think, on January 9th or 10th, so at the end of last week, there are no penalties in the game anymore.
Good.
Like none. Just absolutely nothing. You can punt someone off the track and get away scot-free.
Well, I mean, that's just appeasing to those who've complained about the penalty outright.
Yeah.
Can you complain about the penalties? Well, there are no penalties. Well, that's the problem solved for now. So I assume they haven't taken penalties outright. I'm sure that's
no.
A huge exaggeration. But where they've gone from very, 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 very strict, it's very easy to go very, 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 very lenient in order to bring back some balance. But then the whole video at the very start of GT Sport, before you can even go racing, about sportsmanship. I mean, it's a 2-3 minute video. You have to watch
two videos of each 2.5 minutes roughly.
I had to sit through those. I had to
everyone who plays GT Sport has to sit through those.
I've been racing for years and years. Austin's been racing longer than me, but I have been racing for years.
I'm older than you as well.
No one needs to know. But I've been racing for years. I had to sit through that just as everybody else did. And then when you get to a lobby and you go in and find out that it's very lenient, the penalties don't quite happen as often, that then throws the whole sportsmanship thing out of the window. Now, I know that some of the GT Sport events in the past, the Esports events, where they've had the likes of Jimmy Broadbent on the commentary. Mm-hmm. I mean, they have been fantastic races. They have blown that Esports racing series just out of the water completely. And I think coming onto it later, the F1 Esports could learn quite a bit from that. I mean, you had commentators with a sim racing background. That was the huge difference. A sim racing background that knew a hell of a lot about GT Sport, and it showed. And to me, that's as important as anything. You can have, the F1 Esports, but at least let's have some commentators who are part of the sim racing, industry.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's for me. I talked about this a couple times before on the podcast that we as much as oh sorry, man, as much as I like seeing guys like or hearing guys like David Evans and Jack Nichols commentate, and it's all fine and dandy. They're fantastic commentators. Absolutely. Don't get me wrong, but I would just like to see more Matt Gallagher's, more people who know the game, who have played the game, who've played previous installments of the game, and who are part of the sim racing, especially the F1 sim racing community. And it's nice. It's nice that they fly out or invite guys like Tiamat Marduk, but then he just sits in the audience. Like, what's that good for? The guy has hundreds of thousands of YouTube subscribers, knows the game probably better than anyone, inside and out, with all the bugs and all the glitches that there are. And he sits in the audience and can clap and smile. And come on, get him involved. I understand that Arav is involved with Sauber, Alfa Romeo, Sauber Esports, whatever it's called.
It is Sauber Esports. Yeah. You can get away with that one.
Yeah, good. But that's all fine. He's, I think, that the team manager, something of sorts. And that's fine, but get Tiamat Marduk involved. If he isn't affiliated to any one team, then get him on the broadcast team somehow.
I think they're missing a trick, Austin. I think we should go.
I knew you were gonna say that, and I would be very okay with that.
Very okay.
Very okay. It's German understatement, okay? When I say very okay, I mean I would be absolutely effing delighted.
Well, let's bring it back to the penalties, because that's what's on the screen. It would be a very strange to talk about F1 Esports when we've got GT Sport penalties on the screen.
Yeah,
anyway,
and we have F1 Esports coming up later anyway.
Yes, so we'll leave that for now. But yeah, the whole point of the GT Sport is that it got the FIA backing, which was at the time was amazing.
It still is.
It still is, and you have the manufacturer series and you have the Nation series.
Nations Cup.
Nations Cup, my apologies. Which I understand, Austin, you've been doing pretty decently at.
I don't know. I only the manufacturer series, really, because Nations Cup is really hard for a German to make it into the top 10, because there's a lot of really good German drivers on GT Sport.
No way.
Yeah. Germany, UK, France are probably the three best nations in the Europe, Middle East, and Africa. No, in the Europe, Middle East. I was about to say in the EU, I was about to say in the EMEA region, but no one knows what that means. So Europe, Middle East, and Africa region. And it's really hard to get into the top 10 in either of those countries. Italy as well, really hard to do. But if I lived in Switzerland, for example, I'd probably do the Nations Cup a lot more, because it would be very easy to get into the top 10. But I instead I just choose a manufacturer that isn't as populated, and I go for the top 10 in that. And last time I worked out on the Peugeot, hell of a car, and by hell I mean literal hell. The Group 4 is a front-wheel drive car. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
Tire wear on the rears is amazingly low. I mean, you can take those babies out for thousands of laps, really, because all they do is make sure that the car doesn't fall down. But fronts, I mean, they're done after 1 lap, 2 laps. I feel like it's just awful. But yeah, GT Sport with the penalties, it feels like they had a penalty system before the 2 patches. They had a penalty system that worked. It was good. It wasn't perfect by any means, but it was good. It was stable. It was accurate would be an overstatement, but it was, it was there. It was okay. It was fine. And they've decided to just kick it up a notch, and it was too much. And then they've gone in the opposite direction. And basically, I think you said they haven't outright turned off penalties altogether, and they haven't. That's true, because you can still get corner cutting penalties, but I think they have completely turned off contact penalties, because I haven't seen a single one since the most recent update.
And that's the issue with, yes, there's a response, but it's a response that pretty much goes overkill.
Yeah.
Which
the even bigger issue is that F1. Why am I? We're gonna get to F1 Esports. Like the GT Sport has a 2-tiered rating system, just like F1 has, and like iRacing has, where you have both a driver rating, a skill rating, if you will, and a sportsmanship, safety rating, whatever you want to call it. In GT Sport, it's called a sportsmanship rating and a driver rating. Driver rating measures how good you are, how fast you are, how well you finish in the races. And the sportsmanship rating measures how well behaved you are. And your sportsmanship always goes up as long as you don't make contact with other cars. Well, really, it only goes up as long as you don't get penalties. The sportsmanship rating system is tied in very heavily to penalties. And if the game doesn't give out any penalties, everyone's going to have the maximum sportsmanship rating, even dirty drivers.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be something, because it's got the FIA official backing. there has to be something done about that.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have at some point the rating system, the safety rating system is going to work, or the sportsmanship rating is going to work. As in, you can make contact with another car, you can take them out, nothing's going to happen. So how does that look for not only GT Sport, but for the FIA? They've officially backed a sim racing series, 2 of them on this game.
Yeah.
To see these driving standards that could go unpunished. I mean, they won't have it.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is that at least on the live events, the World Tour, they still have proper stewarding. So they have actual people looking at everything, and just like they have on F1 Esports as well, where they have people in the background just trying to look at every incident they get to see, and then deciding whether that warrants a penalty or not. Basically, almost instant. It's certainly a lot faster than real F1 is in terms of handing down penalties. But I think it's also very accurate in the way they assess it. They do get things right a lot of the time. I haven't ever seen a penalty on GT Sport where I thought, well, that's in the World Tour events, I should say, where I thought, well, that's a bit harsh, or vice versa. Why is there no penalty for this? No, it's always been very, very good stewarding at the live events, and kudos to whoever they hired to do the stewarding. But you have to ensure a certain level of competitive integrity for the online events as well. And those are the ones that I think, I mean, those are the ones that matter the most, because only through the online events can you qualify for the World Tour.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, when you're saying the sort of the real stewarding, you're absolutely right. It's amazing. I mean, I was there for the first Shadow project, McLaren Shadow project. I was part of the crew there. So the first ever one. And it was sort of it's not been done like this before. It was multiple different games, if you all remember that. Yeah. And I mean, it was so surreal. I mean, I knew some of the stewarding team. I still know them. They did a great job.
You didn't forget, okay?
I didn't forget them. They're still there. They're still there.
Wow.
But no, I mean, a real stewarding team will always be better than an automated system, because you tell an automated penalty system what's a penalty and what isn't. That's the way it works. That's why an automated penalty system really, in the long run, over many instances, doesn't work. It's not meant to work perfectly. I mean, we see in GT Sport, we see in the F1 games, we even see on iRacing that there are penalties that are handed out that don't show what happened. I mean, when you go on iRacing, one of the things they say is that there isn't a decision of blame. It's the fact that there was contact. So you both get punished. Yeah. It's not a perfect system. It never will be, because it's a system that works on a code. You tell it what's a penalty and what isn't, and that's that. But as you say, when we get to the real life events, when we get to the live events, where there's an actual commentary team, when there's an actual stewarding team, of course, those decisions are going to be more accurate, because people are going to say, well, actually, he was out of control there. Well, actually, that the door was closed and he had nowhere to go. He was half a car alongside. You get those decisions and those discussions with an actual stewarding team, whereas an automated system will just say, well, that happened, which led to this. But I'm told that's a penalty.
Yeah. And you said he was out of control, and therefore in F1 that would still be a 5-second penalty, which is going to lose you the Canadian Grand Prix. So
he had to off his tires. What was he supposed to do?
I'm still not over it. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Obviously, the one thing I'm going to say is that I've heard GT Sport content creators, Key for one, but he wasn't the only one, say before that the iRacing the iRacing penalty system, as weird as it is to say we don't assign blame, there was contact, therefore you get punished. As harsh as that is, it's actually pretty good because it is one of the best deterrents of contact. You're gonna think twice, knowing that you are gonna get punished no matter what if you make contact. On GT Sport, it could be, and I've seen this before. There are drivers on GT Sport that tried to exploit the previous or the second previous penalty system, the one that was still okay, by first initiating contact and then going off the track. Because the way the system worked is that if there was contact and one of the cars left the track, the other car would automatically get the blame and a 5-second penalty.
Because it's programmed to do that.
Because it's programmed to do that, exactly. And so drivers deliberately sought contact, then went off the track deliberately, and got the other car a 5-second penalty to get rid of them and, dispose of an opponent. I'm not so sure that's the way it should be, that a penalty system should be exploited like that. So having a system that just says, look, there was contact, so you get penalized. It needs to be said, in iRacing, the penalty isn't a time penalty. You get an incident, and you can only get X amount of incidents before you get disqualified. Straight up disqualified. No time penalties in this game. Just, you have, 17 incidents, bye-bye.
And bear in mind that an incident point, if you have contact, is normally 4. That's the most severe it can be. But you can get that multiple times in the same quote-unquote incident. You can get multiple incident points. So, for example, contact and off track, well, that could get you 6, maybe 7.
Yeah.
And yeah, no penalty system is going to be perfect because it's not, there's no human element behind it. So it's not going to be perfect. But I think iRacing, as you say, Austin, has one of the better automated systems. It still has its flaws, but guess what? So do the real life stewards. They have flaws as well. Some of them will see, some of them have the open wheel mentality, like I do, where if there's contact made, it's already sketchy from the start. But there are drivers who've come from a stock car background or a touring car background where, there's less accountability for, banging tires or banging wheels or door to door, because that's considered racing.
Yeah.
So if you have different drivers from different backgrounds, of course the penalties might be slightly different. I know in NASCAR there's a huge thing about, well, if he wrecks you, that's between you two. We're staying out.
NASCAR just doesn't do any penalties unless, someone breaks rules that do not include like crashing and contact. Then they hand down penalties. But if it's just you wreck him, that's between, we're staying out of this. That's between you two. You solve this. And usually the guy, let's say guy A wrecks guy B. Next race, you can be pretty sure that someone else, a guy C, is gonna wreck guy A. Because it doesn't fly. They self-regulate. And it's awesome.
Yeah, and that is a system that has worked. Again, it has its flaws because some drivers take it too far.
Yeah,
in terms of revenge. But
greetings to Kyle Busch.
But no penalty system is going to be perfect. But for what it is, I think GT Sport have listened at long last. It's not easy when an issue's raised and for the developers to then fix that issue. It's not as simple as clicking your fingers and that's that. There's a lot of work that goes into it, a lot of finding the error code. The fault finding in the code itself would take 80% of the time because you're not sure this happens. Okay, so this is a cause and effect. So we've got to find out what causes this part. But then it takes a ridiculous amount of time to find out what the exact cause is. Then when you patch it, well, as we've seen in the past, some patches break other parts of the game. So you have to start all over again. Well, why did that patch have an issue or affect further things down the line? I mean, I know in time trials, I've seen someone, I can't remember how many penalty systems this was back. It wasn't that long ago. I think it was around Christmas time, maybe before. Someone around the Circuit de la Sarthe, the Le Mans circuit, would constantly lose control of his car or constantly be off track until the start-finish line, cutting the chicane, both of them, but staying off track and then coming back onto the track to cross the start-finish line where the lap would count. And then the automated system would realize, well, actually, the time you've gained there is this much, therefore you get this amount of time penalty, which was about 23, 24 seconds. But the penalty wasn't awarded until after the start-finish line.
Yeah.
Which then invalidates the lap they're currently on, not the previous one. So that was exploited. But that was a much more self-regulating system, because if you did it, well, your ghost car was freely available to watch. Very freely available. So there was that risk where your gamer tag, your name, would be associated with this lap. Do you want that? Well, probably not. You probably don't want to be the person to be outed like that.
And the thing is also on GT Sport, if you post a top 10 lap time, your ghost, your replay is automatically uploaded for everyone to watch.
So there's no escape.
There's no escape. Well, I think there is one escape, but you have to basically glitch out of the game so that it posts the time but doesn't save the replay. Otherwise, you can't prevent it, and you have to actively prevent it. And I don't even know how to do it. To be fair, I've never posted a top 10 lap time, but I'm not that good. Maybe if I had a wheel, I could be there with the right car and the right track, the right combination. That would be a chance. But not with my pad and everything. But I think there is a way. But usually, most of the time you see all the top 10 drivers. Just you can watch all their ghosts, all their replays.
Well, I know for sure that I don't normally get many penalties because I'm a nice and clean driver that never gets any penalties. yeah. Austin's coughing there in disbelief. That's what that is.
No. I'm just still a little bit sick.
But oh, bless you. Well, maybe then we should move on to another topic. Austin, what topic have you got for us next?
Well, the next one is an article I saw from Crash.net, posted by Luke Smith, and it is the F1 is to use esports drivers to test their potential rule changes. So the one there was the Autosport International, and the F1 Chief Technical Officer Pat Simmons was there and explained a little bit that in the future they were gonna use some of the esports leaders, as he said, to test out potential rule changes. And apparently one instance where this maybe could have come in handy already, but I think didn't, is the whole discussion about the reverse grid sprint races that was then rejected for 2020, at least, probably beyond that as well, and I would say thankfully. But would have been interesting to test this out with F1 esports drivers, to have like a 25% or I don't know, you could program it to have, I don't know, 33% as the distance. I'm pretty sure Codemasters would easily be able to adjust that. But to test this out and see what are the effects of reversing the grid when you have different cars, because the cars are in the game with their speed difference, obviously not perfectly correct, because I think that's probably impossible to do, but certainly very, very close to the real world. And to have, let's say, the real Williams performance at the very front of the grid, and then the real Mercedes and Ferrari performance at the back, and see how that's going to develop over the course of 20 laps or whatever. Would have been interesting. They have used their own simulations for those reverse grid sprint race ideas, and their simulations were one of the reason that it was rejected. I don't have too much detail on it regarding what exactly happened in the simulations, but that's what the article says, and the article is quoting the F1 CTO Pat Simmons, so he should know.
I mean, you would think so. You'd like to. But I think it's a good idea. You're testing new rules or rule changes in an environment where you can just simulate it over and over again. I mean, you can't. The only way you can do that in real life is to actually run those races.
Using that is expensive,
and that's very expensive. The other thing you have is you host a non-championship race. Now, I can't remember the last time Formula One hosted a non-championship race. In fact, I don't think there has been one for a good 30, 40 years.
Let's see. I wanna know.
Well, whilst you look that up, because I mean, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? When you use a virtual environment to test these rule changes, you can test them 3 or 4, maybe 5, 6, 7 times a day if you really needed to over these long periods of time. It just makes sense to use those esports drivers that have obviously proven that they're capable enough, obviously love to drive, and they would then be getting the practice that they need as well. I mean, to me, that's a win-win. F1 gets to test its rule changes. The esports drivers get a little bit of testing time with their teams, with their respective teams. The teams could obviously change around. Like you wouldn't maybe have 1 or 2. You could have 3 if you really wanted to, depending on what's happening. But it's a no-brainer. Austin, how have you found out yet when the last non-championship race was? I'm thinking 70s, late 70s.
I think the last one. Yeah, there you go. The last one was you're close, but not there. 1983. Was the Brands Hatch Race of Champions. Don't mix it up with the Stadium Race of Champions, obviously. But yeah, 1983 at Brands Hatch, won by Keke Rosberg in the Williams. And that was the last one. So we're talking 37 years now.
There you go. So I can't see F1 hosting a non-championship race just to test some rule changes. I mean, they wouldn't even make the 2005 US Grand Prix a non-championship race. So I can't see them hosting a non-championship race just to test rules.
Yeah.
Or to possibly test rule changes. To me, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. And Pat Simmons also said that, and I quote, "One of the models we've run is we've looked at whether the grid formation that we have at the moment, which is the staggered 8-meter grid, whether that's the right way to do it. If you want to investigate what would be the effect of a 2x2 grid, physics will tell you that the cars will all make the same start. They'll all arrive at the first corner in the same order. But that's not the way it really is. We need to understand, well, will we actually get a more exciting first lap, or will we just get a lot of accidents? We obviously don't want to wipe out half the field on the first lap. And the only way you can do that is the human in the loop thing."
See, I'm not sure about the grid slot changes. I mean, it's worked well now, and you even still get instants going into the first corner with the grid the way it is. I mean, the thing about it is that when IndyCar went from 3 wide starts to 2 wide, what was the first thing that happened? Well, first of all, you didn't get an accident before the green flag waved.
Yeah.
That was a big one. But also, you got cleaner starts. Yes, you had, it was 2x2. Then they could break formation once they passed the start-finish line. All that lovely stuff. But it was cleaner. It was better because more drivers made it through the first couple of laps. And as we all know, in motorsports, you don't win the race on the very first lap, but you can certainly lose it.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it doesn't make. I'm not a fan of changing something that to me isn't broken.
Yeah. And
that's for the sake of making the first lap exciting. Well, okay, but there's still another 297 kilometers of the race to go.
Mm-hmm.
That to me doesn't make any sense. If you're solely focusing on the start, then you're looking at it all wrong.
Yeah, pretty much. In defense of Pat Simmons and the F1 in general, I would say that you always want to look at things, and sure, if it's not broken, don't fix it. We all know that. Plenty of F1 drivers who haven't stuck to that rule, but you still want to try to optimize everything you can. And you can work on multiple things at once. You can go, all right, we want to bring out a car for 2021 that is competitive, no dirty air, or not nearly as much. And the most important thing that I take away from the 2021, to just get into that very, very quickly, very briefly, is the whole open source idea that they say, look, every part you have on the car is open source and other teams can replicate it if they so choose. That's going to get the grid closer together. But to go back now, you can work on multiple things. And is it a good idea to change the staggered grid? I don't think so. I think it works well. It does for an exciting run into turn one. A 2x2 grid, I fear, first off, there's no advantage the pole sitter has anymore over P2. What the heck? Why did you even qualify on pole position if second place gets basically the same run into turn one?
Now, I can see the issue there raised of, in rolling starts, you get the two side by side. Yes, you do, but it's the leader's call as to when he accelerates. Second place can't accelerate first. That's the whole point.
Exactly.
So that makes sense. But as you say, from a standing start, when you've gone through all that effort,
it's not the leader who decides when the race has started.
It's the race director, the starter of the race.
The five red lights when they go out, and so away they go.
To me, the grid system as it is now isn't broken. Mm-hmm. So I don't see why we have to change it. I mean, when we were in the 60s and the 70s and you had the sort of 3x2x3x2 at some tracks.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there was a reason to change that because 3 people going into turn one side by side. I mean, we barely see it nowadays because it just doesn't result in a nice, clean move for one of the drivers. It just doesn't. Someone goes off the track or someone's into the gravel, if there is any gravel, or
bring back gravel
contact. Let's not get into that debate. Gravel flips cars, man. Let's not get into that.
Okay, bring back grass.
Yeah, but then when grass gets wet, it gets slippery and it doesn't stop cars. But I thought
it's not supposed to. That's what barriers are there for.
Oh, right. How did we get here? Rule check. That's how we got here.
It's my. I don't know if I do have ADHD, but if I do, that's what it is.
I'm along with you for the ride, though. So
yeah, there you go. But yeah, the last thing he said, or the last thing Pat Simmons is quoted saying, is what I'm hoping at the end of this year is that we'll use some of our elite gaming racers. That's a nice way to be referred to, isn't it?
Yeah, elite gaming racer, yeah.
Elite gaming racer. That's pretty nice. From our esports series to actually test out some of our ideas of sporting regulation changes. So I think this whole do we change the way we line up the cars on the grid? I think that was just one thing, and I think they probably realized very quickly that it's probably best the way it is right now.
Yeah.
The one thing I would certainly not want to see F1 do, I don't know if they ever did it. They certainly did when the Indy 500 was a championship race. Is flying starts, because it's just on a road course, it's just awful. I see it in GT Sport. Most races in the FIA races on GT Sport are not in a standing start, but a flying start, and it's just awful. To be fair, on GT Sport, the cars are way too far away from each other, so it leads
well.
to, depending on the track. Let's take Suzuka. We have the Casio Triangle at the very end, very slow chicane. It happens on GT Sport very often that if you're around somewhere in the midfield, P8, 10, 12, something like that, you have to start in the chicane, whereas the top 7 or 9 or something start basically in the acceleration zone on in the right hand bend or on the start finish straight altogether. And that's just awful because you're instantly at a huge disadvantage. You have the cars behind you waiting for you to get through the corner, and the cars in front of you are already through the corner. They're gone. They're flying away. And you're like, wait, what just happened? No one in front of me, everyone behind me. What the heck? So this wouldn't be a good idea unless they have really close gaps for the start, and they go, look, you have to be really close to the guy ahead. But even then, now the standing start in F1 is good, and the grid I would say is good as well. Don't fix what isn't broken.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine a rolling start at Monaco? It's not gonna work.
You had to go with the extreme example, huh?
Yes, I did. You know, I had to go there.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right. You're right. It's it would be awful. Imagine the cars going 2x2 for a flying start around or through the final chicane of Canada. How are they going to fit through there side by side?
They barely go through there one by one.
Yeah, the Wall of Champions is called the Wall of Champions for a reason.
Well, I mean, look, it's a great idea to use esports drivers to test these rule changes. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's keep the grid sizes and the grid shape the way it is in F1 because it's not broken.
Yeah. There's other things that are. Let's focus on those.
Well, what else have you got in the pipeline? We were discussing before the stream started that this whole thing about a quote unquote simulator championship, where if you've ever watched sort of football, you'll know there's normally the Premier League, but then there's also a sort of an under 21s or an under 23 league where it promotes younger talent to try and shine through. But it also allows normally for first team players to regain their fitness after an injury. That's what it's there for. So why not incorporate that sort of thing into Formula One? You've got F1, the pinnacle of motorsport, so-called. But then you could also have, I mean, every team has a simulator. Every single team. And all of those teams, with Ferrari's inclusion into the F1 esports, with their entry into F1 esports, they now have some drivers there under their belt that they can use to test the simulator, in theory, to test on the simulator. So why not combine the best of both worlds? Why not have these esports drivers you've signed for the draft? They seem to only be used now for the draft. Well, it would make sense to make a championship using maybe the simulators they have, and that would promote a sort of quote unquote youth academy. Then the age could be lower because it's not, the dangerous motorsport that it has to be. I mean, now to compete in F1, you have to be 18 years old.
Do you?
Yes, you do. You have to be 18 to get a super license. Therefore, you have to be 18 to drive a Formula 1.
Wasn't that changed because of Max Verstappen?
Indeed, it was. Yes.
Because I was thinking, wait, but Max Verstappen was 17 when he started. So, okay. But yeah, it was changed because of him. Yeah.
But yeah, then it makes sense because now you have a sort of youth academy.
Well, to be fair, I think a lot of F1 teams already do that they use the drivers for simulator work. I'm pretty sure Brendan Lee does simulator work for Mercedes. I'm pretty sure that David Tonizza does simulator work for Ferrari. I think there's a couple others. I don't think every team does it. For example, I think Renault doesn't have their drivers do simulator testing.
But remember, they do have a big partnership with Team Vitality.
Yeah, that is true.
So there is that side.
There's that, yeah. But I know that Brendan Lee and David Tonizza do, like, they do drive in the simulator for the teams, for the actual F1 teams as well. And the Ferrari Esports team, F1 Esports team, is called Ferrari Driver Academy. That's the official name. So he is a part of the Ferrari Driver Academy already, David Tonizza, that is. So that effect is already there. And the one issue I see with the simulator championship is that these simulators that the teams have are really effing expensive and really big. And trying to transport them to wherever that championship would be held, that's going to be a challenge. And then having to rebuild, maybe you have to like take it apart, then transport it, and then rebuild it. That's a lot of effort you would have to put into that. And I don't see this as a viable option. It's probably easier to just maybe give more value to the F1 Esports Championship by maybe saying, look, if you sign a driver to the F1 Esports team, you have to let them do simulator work at least 5 days of the year, or whatever. You have to like give them a minimum amount of simulator work. That would be something that now every driver who's an F1 Esports driver gets involved with the real F1 team as well.
And it would help on both ends, because then you've got an esports driver, an F1 esports driver, doing your simulator work for you. They're getting valuable experience. The team's then getting valuable data. Mm-hmm. It works on both ways.
Yeah. And the other thing I would like to see, we talked about this before we started, F1 Esports needs... I think, one, they need to do what basically Formula E has done now, that they've applied to... First off, Formula E has been an FIA championship since its inception. F1 Esports needs to work together with the FIA as well. Because as far as I know, F1 Esports is not an FIA certified championship. They should be. Do it. Then I don't see F1 Esports, why F1 Esports wouldn't be able to do it. They have the connection through F1 already, so that should be easy to do. And then let the best of F1 Esports accrue some super license points. It doesn't need to be much. I know you need 40 in 3 seasons to get your super license, but make it 5, 3, and 1 for the top 3. That way, winning the F1 Esports 3 times in a row is still not going to give you the super license, because it shouldn't. You need to have a real like physical racing experience as well. But you would have a start, you would have 5 points. If you win it twice like Brendan Lee did, you would have 10 points. And if you then go on and go into a championship where you can get 30, and you do get 30, which, to be fair, is a huge leap, there's your 40 points, and you're ready for F1. You're ready for the really big jump. Yeah, if you're going to get it is a different question. But you already have the connection to a team. You would have the super license points. You would have everything you need. And even, look, with the new rule for is it for this year or for next year? So for 2020 or 2021, with the drivers who only have 2 Grand Prix or less?
That will be this season upcoming.
This season, okay. So if what was it, 2 practice sessions?
I'll have to have a look, but yeah, basically the Formula One practice sessions now count towards the super license. So in F1, you need 40 super license points in order to drive a car in a race. But they're now trying to introduce the free practice only super license. You'd only need 25 points. So when we saw Albon at the very start of last year in pre-season, you would have seen he had the green lights on the back of his car. That's because he didn't have his full super license. I think his final test was about a week afterwards, something like that. So he had to have green lights on his car to inform other drivers that this is a driver who's driving a car, but because it's not a race scenario, he's allowed to. He's got enough points to step into a car, but not race it in anger. Just be careful. Just be careful. Which, yeah, it's a good idea. I'd never seen the green lights before, so that was pretty interesting. But from 2020, let's have a look here. Participating free set. Yeah, I've been over that. I'm just trying to find the key bit of information I need because I'm just reading the Autosport article about it. Because it says drivers who successfully complete 100 kilometers during a free practice session will be granted 1 additional point per Grand Prix weekend as long as they don't pick up any license penalty points.
Oh.
And the number of points that can be earned from free practice sessions will be limited to 10 across 3 seasons. So that then focuses on getting younger drivers into the seat rather than having your veteran driver have it, because the veteran driver most likely doesn't need the points because they're already there.
Yeah.
But drivers who are still in Formula 2, meanwhile, will then get the opportunity to have some super license points to the name.
Yeah, and 10 in 3 seasons. If you get 30 points, so you could now, obviously this is a very unrealistic scenario, but you could come 6th, or let's start, where do we start? Yeah, here. You could come 3rd in the World Series Formula VA 3.5. Oh, that doesn't exist anymore. I forgot. Whoops. Here, there you go. You could come 4th in the F3 Americas Championship or the F3 Asian Championship or the Formula Renault Euro Cup. Then you could come 4th in the F3, and then you could come 6th in the F2 Championship, and then you could get those 10 points from the practice sessions, and you would have 40 points over the last 3 seasons, and you would be there. You would get 10 points from the 4th place in the F3 Asian Championship. You would have 10 points from the 4th place in the F3, and you would have 10 points from 6th in Formula 2, and you have another 10 points, which then adds up to 40 from those 10 practice sessions. So that would be a way to get into F1.
Yeah.
Which before it wasn't. You needed 5th place in the F2 to get 20 points and have the full 40.
Well, I think as well, there's also this, furthermore, all teams must run at least 2 practice sessions during the year using drivers who've completed 2 Grand Prix or fewer. Now, that used to be for the young drivers' practice session at the end of the season.
Yeah.
I think there was always one at Abu Dhabi, but there might have been one halfway through the season.
Yeah. There was one just before the summer break.
Yeah. So
usually at whatever race, usually Hungary, right? That's always the last one.
Yeah. And so that works for the young drivers' day testing because those are the same rules there, that 2 Grand Prix or fewer. And I remember there was a clause for George Russell because he got to drive the Mercedes for a session because he'd competed at the time in 2 Grand Prix or fewer. I believe it was, I think someone stood in, I can't remember the exact terminology and the exact reason why, but Russell this year was allowed to drive a Formula One car in an FP1 session just because. Yeah, because he'd competed in 2 Grand Prix or fewer.
Yeah. But yeah, I would like to see F1 Esports be like valued higher, and give the drivers, the F1 Esports drivers, some more, just a little bit more. Ultimately, obviously, I think the goal needs to be that F1 Esports travels around the world together with the real F1, and they just, I mean, every racetrack on the F1 calendar has the facilities to also hold an F1 Esports race. They have the space there to put up the 20 rigs and let the drivers race on there. And just, all it needs is the will of F1 to do it, really. And the teams as well, probably, because obviously you would have to fly out the drivers every single time. But I don't see why not.
No, I don't see why not. And it's, esports is a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Mm-hmm.
It would be silly to pass up on something like that. Right, I think that's enough about F1 Esports. Let's see, what other things have you got in line for us, Austin?
Well, as you may know, and as the viewers may know, I mean, you definitely know, as the viewers may know, last weekend was the Autosport International. And
Yes.
they had 2 sim racing events held there. One, the Le Mans Esports on Forza Motorsport 7, and the Dirt Rally World Series.
Yeah, I mean, two events that went down a storm. I mean, they were, in theory, the most packed places when they were running.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to watch it. I mean, that's the beauty now of esports, is that it's attracting these huge crowds. Some people are going to Autosport International now just to watch the Le Mans Esports Series and the Dirt Rally World Series.
Yeah,
I know some of the commentator friends, cool commentator friends that we have, Austin, went up there to watch both of them.
Yeah,
and I was very jealous because I saw some of the photos there, and I realized, wow, okay, spent too much of Christmas, regret that. But in essence, it is one I want to go to, because now Autosport is embracing the esports part of it, which I think organizations like that would have sort of passed it up as it's a fad, it will die off, it will die down, it won't be as big. But now it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. I think Autosport really just not necessarily have their hands tied behind their back, but they have the foresight to say, well, yeah, it would be silly not to host it here. That you've got people who are now coming along to see all of these great cars, to meet all of these great people. I mean, you had Leclerc and Lando Norris present at Autosport. People will be coming to see them. And then you have the esports drivers. I mean, you had Veloce there as well. Veloce Esports.
Veloce was there. Williams Esports was there.
Jonah Lacey Esports was there.
VP Gaming was there. All the big. I think Team Redline was there as well. All the big, all the big sim racing organizations were present for that. Certainly for Le Mans Esports, and I'm pretty sure some of them for Dirt Rally World Series as well. The one person who wasn't there, however,
me.
I mean, I wasn't there either, but that's not what I'm talking about.
The 2 people that weren't there were us.
No, there was one person who was supposed to be there but wasn't there, and that was a bit of very, very, I would say, very bad luck, and really just, I don't know, a really bad person in influencing this event, the Le Mans Esports. The one person who wasn't there was Veloce Storm. Some of you may know him from the beautiful Bonjour Storm memes on Twitter. And what happened was, he put a whole Twitter thread out there. I'm going to read some of it. He says, as you guys know, I was supposed to go to Birmingham for the Le Mans Esports event, and sadly, I will never make it there. The reason behind this is I got robbed at the Roissy Charles de Gaulle airport in France. My backpack, which contained my travel documents, passport and wallet containing my ID card, as well as a few other valuable stuff, was robbed, leaving me without any official documents to travel with in order to go to the UK. He's from France, I should say that. Despite my absolute best efforts to find my travel documents with the help of the security and the lost property service of the airport and to make emergency travel documents, timing was way too short for any of the procedures I could choose to be able to travel to the UK. And what happened then was Veloce still competed, but they were supposed to be there with 4 people. Veloce James, the all-rounder, world's fastest gamer, the guy who could do it all in every game. Absolutely amazing to see him. Veloce Virus. Haven't even heard of him before. And Veloce Storm was supposed to be there. And Hayden Gullis. I hope I didn't butcher that last name. The content manager for Veloce. So not a driver, really. Obviously, he plays sim racing games, but he is a content manager and presenter. And he had to step in out of emergency, really, out of necessity. He had to step in, and he did. And he wasn't too bad. He took over the final stint. I think it was a 32-lap race around Le Mans. And he took over with 10 laps left to go in the lead. And he finished P6, which, considering that he's going up against some of the best in the world there, is quite astonishing, I have to say.
Absolutely. I mean, he'd be doing better than I could. So
I have no doubt about that.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Hey now. Only I can make those comments about me, not you.
No, you know I made those comments about you plenty of times before.
Yeah.
Come on.
Too many times.
Oh, now I feel bad.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a great performance, and I mean, Veloce just hit there by, as you say, one person committing a crime, and that's affected the entire team.
Yeah,
and I just hope Storm's all right. I can't imagine what he's like in that situation, but I'm sure very shaken up. So
yeah, he was destroyed and fuming. He went through a whole lot of emotions. And if you go look at his Twitter, it's Veloce_Storm. You can read up on all of it. It was just tragic to read and see. But the one glimmer of hope is that his bio now reads happy driver for Veloce Esports. Which, okay, good to see that he's happy again.
Yes.
And he is going to be involved with the next race. The Le Mans Esports is a series, so it's not just one race and then it's all done. If you go to the website, which is obviously lemansesports.com, very simple, you can see a schedule there. And I'm trying to bring it up right now, but it's not loading. I think the next race that they have is early February. So in about, what is that then, 3 weeks? Yeah, about 3 weeks. And so he will be back for that, hopefully, most likely, almost certainly. And the only thing that I'm thinking about is, imagine what could have been if that hadn't happened. I mean, think about Veloce Storm, who's an incredibly fast driver. Also, by the way, one who is a bit of an all-rounder. He does Forza and he does GT Sport as well. Imagine if he takes over the car in the lead with 10 laps around Le Mans to go. So basically half an hour left to race. It's a sure win for Veloce, I would say.
Well, I mean, for that scenario anyway, that we'll never know. But
Yeah, but the next event is going to be the Rivals Round 4. So this was the Autosport Pro Teams Invitational. And they have a whole calendar. The super final at the very end is going to be June 12th, so plenty of time left. And the next event, as I said, the Rivals Round 4. And it will be in the Lancia Corse Beta Monte Carlo Turbo. It's a very long name for a car. At Nürburgring. So they don't just race at Le Mans. But
I was going to say that the grand final you said on the 12th of June. I mean, there's no reason why that date's significant to me whatsoever. You know? It's just another day, isn't it? Oh, okay, you didn't get the hint. Anyway,
I'm thinking right now. Is that your birthday?
No. What would give you that idea?
Okay, all right, good to know.
Well, anyway, it was good to talk about this, and obviously, we didn't actually touch much on the Dirt Rally World Series. I mean, off-roading is not my, it's not my strength. Real driving.
I mean, neither is driving on a track.
Oh, yeah, I beat you to it.
Dang it.
But yeah, Dirt Rally was another one that was at the event there, and I mean, again, that turned out to be just an amazing event once again.
Yeah, and it was so the most amazing thing was that it was just incredibly dramatic as well. The defending Dirt 4 champion, Joona Pankkonen, Finnish. I probably got the name wrong. Don't at me. Won. And got that title as well. Won the final stage, or won the title on the final stage. However, there was a bit happening. So there were 6 drivers that competed over 4 different stages to decide which 3 drivers would then compete in the all or nothing final stage decider. There was also Robin Jönsson, or Jönsson probably, from, I would expect, Sweden. I'm not sure, but the name looks like it. Who was runner-up to Pankkonen last season. And he was first after the 4 stages, ahead of Pankkonen and then British driver Dave Marshall. And so Marshall then had to go into the final stage first. Because he was the third one to qualify. He was the last one to qualify for it. And, he quickly got ruled out of title contention with a not-so-beautiful half roll. So he flipped his car over, and that was pretty much. Then Pankkonen was next, and he made a number of minor mistakes, including a brush with the railings. And he was in tears after his stage. He was crying. He thought he lost the title. He thought Jönsson was going to get it. But Jönsson fell short by 0.8 of a second. And Pankkonen actually won this. It's just absolutely remarkable. That was on the the rally stages. There was also the Rally Cross event, and that saw another SDL Esports driver. So Pankkonen and the winner of the Rally Cross event, Kilian Del Olmo, both SDL Esports drivers.
Yes, if somebody tells you that esports isn't doesn't draw passion. If you tell someone that esports doesn't mean anything, esports isn't a real sport, show them that Dirt Rally World Series, because I think you could change a lot of minds just by that one event alone.
Mm-hmm.
But
the thing is, there's plenty of esports events out there where if someone says, "Oh, it's not a real sport. It's not real. It's so boring," just make them watch. Really, I would say make them watch any esport that isn't hard to get into. Don't make them watch League of Legends, because that is so darn complicated. Don't make them watch Dota 2, because that's really complicated. Make them watch Rocket League. It's a bunch of cars hitting a ball around. Make them watch sim racing. It's the same principle as real motorsport. So that real motorsport is a sport. This is sim racing. It's pretty much the same thing.
I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say it's like Rocket League, but there's no ball. I genuinely
I'm still waiting for Psyonix, the developers of Rocket League, to release a DLC where you can just drive around without a ball. Where you could just go, you get tracks and you get obviously the Rocket League physics and all, but you get just a track where you can drive around and just try to beat your try to beat your friends. But I probably hope forever, and it's never going to come, unfortunately. But I would love to see that, honestly. I would love to see that. But no, it's not like Rocket League without a ball. But it's like real motorsport. And it even involves the steering with the wheel and the acceleration and the braking with your feet and with pedals. So it's actually the same thing, only you can't get hurt. Well, other than maybe cramps in your left leg, usually from braking so hard, because most of these rigs, as far as I know, use at least it's getting more and more to it. These load cell brakes. So there are two types of brake pedals that you can get for if you want to build your own sim racing rig. One is where the braking force is measured by distance traveled of the pedal. So the further you push it down, the more you brake. Or load cell, where the more force you put onto the brake pedal, the more you brake. And it's going more and more towards these load cell brakes. And I think most of these professional rigs that they put up for LAN events already use them. And you could get cramps from that if you push too hard, because you need to just step on them as if your whole body weight needs to go on there, and then some, maybe, depending on how lightweight you are.
I mean, well, I think we've done a lot talking about Autosport International because I'm very jealous about it.
Next year, Kieran, we're both gonna meet up there. And we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna watch some great sim racing,
and we're gonna get a mic and we're gonna commentate over something.
Oh, that would be amazing, but I don't think that's gonna happen.
Never rule it out.
Yeah, fair enough.
Have we got one more topic? Or
I have a quick topic that I wanted to get into a little bit. It's not going to be long, but I like to do these game reviews of sim racing games. We used to call it retro review when it's like an older game, when it's over a year old, but this one isn't over a year old. It's a couple of months old, and it's Need for Speed Heat, the newest installment of the storied Need for Speed series, and it plays in a city called, I think it was Palm City, is the name, and it's basically Miami, really, is what it is. And it does offer a bunch of new things. It allows you now to switch between day and night, and it offers you different styles of racing in day and night, respectively. But it is a fun game. It has a nice variety of cars. It's not Gran Turismo 4 levels of variety, certainly, but it has a nice variety of cars, and it has an interesting storyline. But I don't know. There's something that seems off, especially at night. I am hesitant. Every time I start the game, I am hesitant to choose night. I like driving in the day more. That's because I feel like there are some balancing issues with the game in two regards. One, during both day and night time, when you do the races, in terms of opponent difficulty, it feels like all of your opponents are really, really slow, except for one. One just drives off into the distance and you'll never see him again. He might even lap you, which kind of weird. Why are the other ones so slow? And this one guy is just flying. it's a bit weird, and I think EA needs to work on that. I hope they do. I'm not sure. It's EA after all, but that's one issue. The other issue is the police at night. So you can only really get into a police chase at night. You can do it during the day as well. However, during the day, for you to get into a police chase, you have to ram the police. At night, they just have to see you. Big difference. And you get a heat level that goes from 1 to 5. And as soon as you really hit, I would say 3, it's basically over, because there's no way for you to escape the police ever. I've tried a whole bunch of different stuff. I've tried to find tutorials on YouTube about how to get rid of the cops at heat level 3 or higher, and no one was able to do it. I wasn't able to find anything. It's impossible to do. And I don't know, it shouldn't be that way. It should be hard, sure, but it shouldn't be impossible. But the police, their acceleration is OP until it's like rubber banding, basically. Their acceleration and their straight line speed are both absolutely overpowered until they've caught up with you. Then they'll slow down, which always makes them catch up to you, and you can't shake them. Even if you do a 180 on the highway, they're instantly going to turn around and follow you as well. They might struggle a bit to catch back up, or to make the turn instantly, but they will catch up to you, because again, the acceleration and the straight line speed are just OP. Even though I have a really nice car that I've upgraded and that has good acceleration, good, especially really good on tarmac. You can build your car in different ways. It's for tarmac, or it's for off-road, or it's for drifting, or for race. And I have a car that's made for racing and on the road, and I still can't shake them. And that's the weird thing. I think the game needs to be tweaked a little bit in that regard. Maybe the police shouldn't be that OP. Other than that, it is a fun game. It's fun to drive. It's fun to tune your car. You pretty much get the same visual tuning options that you already had with Payback. There's nothing new there. I wish they would have maybe put a little bit more into this. But in terms of the one good thing is that if you compare it to Payback, the actual performance upgrades, not the visual ones, the actual performance upgrades are better, because you can choose them. You don't have to use these weird cards that you buy, and with the chemistry or whatever they called it, where if you get it from the same brand, if you get 3 from the same brand, you get a bonus and stuff like that. You don't have to worry about that. All you need to do is just buy the parts, and that is certainly better than the Payback system was. That was horrible. So they got rid of that, and that's an improvement. But I wish there was a little bit more. I don't know. I wish there was a little bit more balancing going on. The police are just too good. They're too fast. They're too quick, and they need some improvement. But considering the game has only been released fairly recently, we are talking. What is it about? It was October 20. No, it was November 8th. Sorry, so two months really. I have hope that there's going to be a patch that will fix these issues, at least to a certain extent.
Well, that's quite a nice review there, Austin. A little bit of rubber banding. Maybe it has to be stamped out. Who knows?
Yeah.
Let's hope. Because I've never been a fan of arcade games and rubber banding. I guess that's how they make it competitive, but never been a fan of it.
Well, there is one game that I have played where I initially thought there was rubber banding, but there really wasn't, is The Crew 2, which I'm pretty sure I talked about earlier as well in one of the earlier episodes, and gave a little review of it. It felt, at the beginning, it felt like there was rubber banding, but what really happened was that the slipstream was just so strong that they could catch back up quite easily. But once you have really put a gap between yourself and the opponents of about 2 seconds, then you're driving off into the distance. Then it's over, it's done. If you're a decent driver. But that was a game where I felt it's an arcade racer as well. It's one where I thought there was rubber banding, but there really wasn't. But yeah, Need for Speed seems to have some rubber banding, and it's quite blatant. It's quite obvious.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they can get that fixed. And so what's your scoring system then, Austin? How are you rating this one?
On a scale of 1 to 5 stars, I would give it currently. I would give it a 3.5. Okay. If they fix the balancing issues, it could be a 4 because the vibes are really good. Like it feels like Miami. It has the lighting. It has the purple and pink lights and the palm trees all over the place, and the city feels like the swamps around feel like Florida. It really has a nice feel to it. But yeah, the balancing issues are what ruin it a bit for me, but I still give it 3.5. If they fix that, it would definitely be a 4-star game.
Well, let's move on then to, I believe, is our final one, is it?
Yes, it is.
Well, it's our personal moment of the week, and I'm going to let you start, Austin.
My personal moment of the week was last Friday. I had a second job interview at a company. I'm not going to go into too much detail until I actually have the job because, I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to make other people apply to that job because there might be some. I don't know if there's someone who is more qualified than I am because A, you need to speak German, and B, you need to know your stuff about sim racing really. Well, and C, you need to be able to write well in both German and English. But the last part is where I feel like I'm lacking a bit. But I had the second job interview. I had the first in December, and I think it went really well. I hope at least. It feels like so I talked to the editorial team lead and the head of digital media production at that company. Those were the two who interviewed me. And the head of digital media production, he at times he was talking like basically they're already planning with me. At least it felt like it. And so I have a really good feeling about this. And I tell you right now, I'm going to be absolutely crushed if I don't get it. Because to me, this feels like the dream job. Not just a dream job. No. The dream job.
Well, good luck in that, Austin. Hopefully you do.
Thank you.
And then you can get paid to go to Autosport and bring me along.
I mean, the thing is, it could happen that if I do get the job, I do get paid to cover esports events, live events, and I have to go there. That could very well happen.
Well, it does sound like the dream job then.
Yeah.
Well, what's
yours?
I mean, I don't know. I have started the my series over on Twitch, the Formula One 1988 Artificial Intelligence Championship. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but bear with me. I basically decided that using rFactor 2, I found a mod made by I believe his name is Carrera.4. Fantastic mod, by the way. The engine sounds are amazing. The racing's pretty good, and every single track from 1988 has been recreated. So that's pretty cool. And so I thought, well, why don't we rerun the season? Why don't we rerun 1988? And that to me just struck a chord. We had round 2 last night. That was pretty good. I botched the start a little bit because back in 1988, there could only be 26 starters, but more often than not, there was around 30, 31 entries into every weekend. Now, in my rules, it states that there's a certain amount of qualifying, and if you're outside the top 26, you get booted. So U, D, and Q. But I forgot to take those drivers out of the start of the race. And that was a bit of a botched one because there was a safety car deployed. 3 drivers ran out of fuel on the first lap. That wasn't great. So I decided to just restart it, take out the other drivers, make it 26, and it went on. No one ran out of fuel, and I was happy because we got a great race. So it just proves to you that the AI is, they make mistakes. I mean, the big one was Tossa, which is the left-hander just after Villeneuve, that long right-hander. So you've got Tamburello, then it went into Villeneuve, and then into the braking zone at Tossa. And we had.
I don't think that's how you pronounce it.
I don't know.
It sounds too much like an insult.
It does sound like an insult. That's why it's a great corner.
I think it's Toza.
Toza. Anyway, point is, AI made mistakes, and also PK is under investigation actually for causing a collision at that corner. Well, I think he made contact with.
No. He's under investigation by whom?
Oh, the stewards. That's the point.
who are the stewards?
Well, they're the stewards, Austin. They will do. Basically, I'm trying to make it as if this season is happening right now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's right. Don't worry about it. But that's
ruining the illusion.
Oh, it's all right. The stewards are going to decide what happens, and I'm just there to commentate over it. And obviously, we all know in 1988 that McLaren won all the races bar one, which was the Italian Grand Prix in Monza.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't won a single race so far.
How many races in are we?
We're 2 races in.
Okay, that's already more that they haven't won than in reality.
Patrese has won a race in a Williams. And should I spoil the result of last week's one?
I mean, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. If you want to go watch it, twitch.tv/Kieran MCG. It almost rhymes, but it doesn't. But yeah, it was won by a Ferrari, Michele Alboreto.
Oh.
So he leads the championship now, and it's classic points. So I'm just having a really good time streaming on Twitch on that. And
classic points that was 1988. You said, is that the? Yeah, I was about to ask. Is that the 9-point win season?
Indeed, yes.
Yeah, so 964 321. Whoever thought of that, just.
But unlike in 1988, where you were allowed to drop around, so your worst result would be deducted.
Yeah,
there isn't that in this season, mainly because the whole reason of Formula One is to reward consistency. Surely you can't have the pinnacle of a motorsport and say, "Oh, you know what? Bid off the last race." You can if it's a casual championship, or if it may be to an extent a spec one, but. I don't know. To be honest with you, it should be that every result counts, and it has been since the mid 90s, I think, early 90s, when they just sort of got rid of the whole dropped race scenario, because it meant that nobody really knew what was happening in the race.
Yeah, 1991 was the first season where every race counted. It was also the first season where they went from the 9-point win to the 10-point win. So they did both of these in one go. In the whole 80s and in 81 to 1990, it was that 11 races counted towards the Drivers' Championship. So let's see, F1 1988, you said, was it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it was 11 out of 16. It wasn't one race that was dropped. It was 5.
So yeah, so that's done away with because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So every result counts. That's why Alain Prost is going to struggle a little bit because he had gearbox issues at the first round. Had to retire from the race. So that's going to put a dent in his championship steadings already. And I'm going to cheat because I'm going to have two. But this week I managed to get on iRacing my D road license. Yay!
Hey,
I got a race win and 2 podiums, and that was enough for me to get into D license. So that was pretty cool.
Nice.
And I'm hoping to get to a point where I can actually stream iRacing. That would be pretty cool if it gets to that point. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I cheated. I had 2.
That's all right. That's all right. If you have multiple, go for it. You know, I'm not judging. You know, if you have multiple really good moments of the week, like, yeah, go for it. They just need to be on a similar level. That's all I'm asking.
All right. I would say they're on similar levels. I've got a championship that's working, and my iRacing is going pretty well as well. So
Yeah.
let me know if you want to see me stream it as well. By the way, I'd love to stream it. It's just finding out a way. I think I figured it out. I just need to find time to stream now. That's all it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's me done. And I think, Austin, that will bring us to the end of the show.
It does indeed. Yeah.
Well,
And,
I hope
an hour and a half.
Yeah, an hour and a half of this lovely goodness. I hope you've enjoyed it. Obviously, first refuse to lose of the decade.
No, don't steal that from Owen.
Yeah, Owen White thought of that. All right, okay.
Well, no. Owen didn't think of that. It was me. I was just so insistent on it. I just mentioned it a couple of times that Owen just went absolutely berserk on it. That's what happened.
Yeah,
anyway. I mentioned it during one of the OneHub streams, I think it was. I said the last race of the decade, and Owen just took the piss, really.
Oh dear. Well, we'll wrap it up for tonight then, and hopefully in a fortnight's time you'll be joining us again. But that was the Refuse to Lose podcast, which of course named after the legendary Dale Earnhardt's quote: "The winner ain't the one with the fastest car; it's the one who refuses to lose." Thank you all very much for listening or watching, whatever you want to call it. Make sure as well you follow us on our respective Twitters. Austin, which one are you going to throw up first?
Yours.
Mine. All right, cool. You can follow me on Twitter. It's at KS McGinley. Oh, you see, new handle. It's much nicer now to say.
And I've edited it before the stream.
During the stream, even.
No.
Oh, all right. It would have been funny if it was during the stream. The last 10 minutes, you think, oh, damn.
I mean, I had 90 minutes to do it, really. But
and you thought of now to do it. And you can also follow Austin on Twitter as well. It's at the Badgerman, where the second E is a 3. So go and follow us both on Twitter. Hopefully you'll tune in next week where we talk all things about esports and motorsport in general. Thank you very much for listening. I've been Kieran McGinley.
And I'm Austin Smith.
Take care of yourselves, and we will see you next time.